unstoppable. That's why I'm undefeated. Off the leash, out of the cage, an animal. That's why I'm undefeated. I know I can beat it. Won't give up, 'cause I believe it. Fight for the love of the game. Unstoppable. That's right, I'm undefeated.
Dalton to the end zone. It's Robinson for the touchdown. Right down to zero. Here goes Fields. Can he get in? Yes, he can.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 3 of Out of Hibernation. I am one of the hosts, Ace. You can find me at SportCourtAC on Twitter, and we got our guy Turtle from Turtle's Take. How you doing, Turtle?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. I can't complain after the obnoxious beatdown that the Bears took last week that we all kind of knew was going to happen.
See, look at you. You got to open up old wounds.
Yeah, I mean, it went almost exactly how I expected that game to go.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think
Justin Fields looking as rough as he did. He looked pretty rough last week.
So I'll be the first one to say it because nobody else is saying it, but I know everybody's thinking it. Are we sure this guy's the guy?
Whoa, man! I mean,
like, I know everybody's just blaming Matt Nagy, and that's the easy move, but like, the dude doesn't even look like an NFL quarterback right now.
So
he looks like he's afraid of the moment. He looks like he's indecisive.
He looks shook for sure.
I mean, he looks indecisive. He looks everything, right? Like, everybody keeps saying, well, he's not running because it's the coaching telling him not to. Nobody coaches like that. Nobody says, okay, the game plan is for you not to run. Like, I mean, even when he drops back and there's pressure there and there's lanes to run, he doesn't. He just looks like he's too indecisive and he's like the moment's too big for him.
He does seem shook at times, especially after he takes some hits. He looks real jittery in the pocket. He also, I know the offensive line is terrible in pass protect, but like, he needs to really just try to get rid of that ball faster. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he had what the first turnover of the game was a sack, right? Sack fumble, and it put the Bucks inside the Bears 50, and you give Tom Brady that short field, and he's going to slice you up every time.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the big plays downfield we've seen from him, you know, over the last few games. A lot of them, if you think about them, were adjusted catches by Mooney and some of these guys where the ball wasn't really like on the mark. They went and got it, which I know it's the NFL. You're not every pass is going to be right on the money, but I mean, you'd like to see him at least show a couple plays a game where you're like, oh, okay, this is the guy. That play right there is why we moved up to get him.
Yeah, it seems like whenever things break down early in the game, he seems to really struggle to come back from that.
Yeah,
I know that most quarterbacks, it's when you feel that pressure, the internal clock, you know, they always talk about it's going to start to mess with you. But at the same time, man, like if this guy's the guy, I know he's only played a few games, so I don't want to just say he's not the guy. But at the same time, you kind of have to be. I want to see more growth. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I keep seeing the
absolutely.
same mistakes week after week, and that's not something that's really boding well for the Bears if it keeps up that way.
Well, and you look at a lot of young quarterbacks, especially ones that run. You're like, okay, they look good, but I'd like to see them not run as much. Like, when everything breaks down, they just take off. Like he's not even doing that. Like we see even Andy Dalton, when things broke down, he ran.
Yeah.
And by all means, Andy Dalton is nowhere near the runner that Justin Fields is. It's like, I mean, even that the year that the Bears went to the playoffs against Philadelphia, how many times do we see Mitch pick up a first down with his legs? Like, it moves the change. It gives the defense something to think about. It helps your offense out, and it helps your defense out because they're not in the field so much.
Right.
He goes out there and they go 3 and out, or he gets sack fumble or whatever, and now the defense is back on a short field again. I just think he's making the game harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, I agree. It to me, when I see him play, it's kind of like he's more worried about trying to be that pocket passer quarterback than he needs to be right now for this Bears team. You know what I mean? Like right now, this team doesn't need, 5-step drop back, look down the field, let the ball go. This team needs a quarterback that can get out of the pocket, move, extend the play, move the pocket so that he's not under as much pressure. Let your guys kind of play a little backyard football, get open, and then get the ball downfield. But he's just, he's moving out of the pocket, and then at the very last second, he's deciding, okay, I'm going to take off and run with it. And then by that time, it's too late.
Well, yeah, and you see, I guess the easiest comparison, obviously, always when you're comparing the Bears' offense is to Kansas City because it's the same offense, the same type of game plan. You see Mahomes, and I'm not talking about his passing ability, but you see Mahomes, he runs here and there, but he doesn't necessarily run, but he moves around in the pocket and out of the pocket, back into the pocket, gets away from guys to let guys get open. Yeah. Fields, you see he's got a strong arm, a really strong arm. So, he runs around back there, gets open. Maybe somebody can break free downfield and he can, hit him for a long play or at least give him a shot. You got Cole Kmet who can go downfield. Allen Robinson's a big target downfield. Darnell Mooney has shown he can stretch the field and play, go after the ball at the highest point.
Right.
It looks like they finally fixed the run game, but now we have zero passing game. And, you look week after week after week and you go in and, 100 yards, 150 yards, 125 yards. And it's like you're just waiting. You're waiting for those flashes. You're waiting for those big plays. You're waiting for that drive where he goes out and they go 12 plays down the field. Yeah. And he looks the part during that drive.
Yep, 100%. I agree. And there are moments when he moves the ball well, and then it's the Bears. They bite them. They shoot themselves in the foot, penalties or a turnover at the worst time. And that's frustrating as a Bears fan to keep seeing that happen. You know what I mean? Like in Cleveland, he had a drive where it was going okay, and then they got a turnover. It seems to be in every game, it's almost like that, when they're losing. Now, when they win, like when they played against Detroit, they were the aggressor. I feel like sometimes when they play passive, like, oh, we're going to run, and, we're not going to push the ball as far downfield as we should. Instead of going for it here, we're going to punt, or, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like this team, or they go slow on offense. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when this team has a more up-tempo pace, it bodes well for everybody on that team. The offensive line can kind of work some tired defenders. The defense is off balance. They don't really know what to expect, but you don't really see that until they're down by 20 points in a game, and then they decide to, okay, let's pick it up and go. Yeah, but before we go forward, man, we got our guy Roger. Hopefully the audio works right now. Roger is somebody who I've talked to on Twitter, and we're talking about bringing him on with the Undefeated Sports Network. And I wanted to let him jump on with us, talk Bears, and we'll shoot the shit for a little bit. Roger.
How's it going, guys?
Good, man. Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Awesome.
Yeah, we hear you good.
We were just talking about the Tampa Bay beatdown that the Bears took last week.
That was a fun game to watch.
It always seems like the Bears have a few of those games every year, right? You know, where you go into it and you're like, oh, it's probably going to be a disaster. And then your hope is, well, maybe I'm wrong. And then they absolutely prove you right. You know, like we had Eric Lambert on last week, Roger, me and Turtle, and we were talking about, you know, what he thought was going to happen. And he agreed with me that he thought that this game was going to be exactly what it ended up being, a Tampa Bay beatdown. And personally, I think that the Bears have a nagging problem. I know that Turtle thinks it's not just Matt Nagy. I think, though, that it has a lot to do with how he's preparing the team. I think that they never look sure of themselves really in any aspect of the game except for defense. You know what I mean? And how much of the defense does he really have his finger on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you see a game like this every year. A lot of times, you know, after that game happens to them, they turn it around. They go on a 4-game win streak, 3-game win streak. Usually that's it to get back to 500. This game happened earlier in the season.
Oh, I think Roger froze.
I don't know.
Yeah, now I can, yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Like I was saying, I'm hoping, as a Bears fan, I'm hoping that they can turn that into a 3 or a 4-game win streak. It doesn't have that feeling, you know. It kind of feels like Nagy lost the locker room.
I agree.
You have people tweeting out stuff that Nagy wanted to keep in house, tweeting out that they got fined. I mean, it just doesn't feel like he has control over the locker room anymore.
Turtle, what do you think about that?
You know, I think it's really, you know, one of those things that people go to right away when they determine whether a head coach should stay or not. They go, well, has he lost the locker room? I think when the product on the field is not good, everybody just naturally says, well, he lost the locker room. I mean, yeah, Darnell Mooney tweeted out that he was fined for being late, and he was only 5 minutes late. You know what? You were still late. Be there on time. You know, they all get a handbook at the beginning of the year that says you're going to be fined if you do this. Well, if it says if you're a minute late, you're going to get fined, and you show up 5 minutes late, shame on you for thinking you shouldn't get fined because they told you it was going to happen. You know, everybody complains that the Bears are undisciplined. So what do? They fine somebody when they should, and then everybody's up in arms because Darnell Mooney decided to tweet it out. Well, be up in arms that Darnell Mooney doesn't know how to keep things internal. Shame on him for putting it out there that he doesn't do his job right. Yep. I want to see my receiver that's growing to be possibly the number one if Allen Robinson leaves at the end of the year. I want to see him on time. I want to see him early. I want to see him there getting as much time in with Justin Fields as he can because the product on the field is subpar. Not taking the time out to tweet that, this is bullshit. They fined me. Well, be on time. You know, and as far as locker room goes, I feel like he has a good pulse on the team. Feel like the guys do play hard for him. And you see even in blowouts, they have defensive stands. We saw it last week. Even though they were getting blown out, they had a fourth down stop on Tampa. You know, a lot of defenses, they just cash it in and they say, okay, well, the game's over. We can go ahead, let them just play whatever. I'm not gonna get hurt. I'm not gonna do anything. But you don't really see that out of the Bears. You see them fight. I think this roster is too thin and there's too many holes in it. I don't think there's enough quality players where they need to be for this team to be good. And I think the real problem is just unrealistic expectations. Before Justin Fields, everybody went into this season and said, well, we're going to be 500. And we probably might even be below 500. We got Justin Fields, and everybody said, oh, well, now we're supposed to make the playoffs. Well, why? The kid's a rookie. He's never even played a game before. I mean, now he has, but at the time, all of a sudden, everybody expects it. Well, we should go beat Tampa. We should go do this. I mean, to quote the late Dennis Green, they are exactly who we thought they were. We thought they were going to get blown out by Cleveland. We thought they were going to get blown out by Tampa. We thought they were going to get blown out by the Rams. And look, they have. But then the other games, we thought they'd win, and they have won those. So just because they're losing to the teams that they realistically should be losing to, everybody says, well, Matt Nagy should be fired. Well, why? The roster's no different than it was at the beginning of the year. Just we all got excited about Justin Fields and said, okay, well, now we should be beating these teams. Well, you see, he's not that guy yet. And if he's not that guy, you're not going to beat these teams.
Right.
But he's out there. He's getting the experience. It's better than going to Andy Dalton. It's better than going to Nick Foles. It's better than any of those things. You know, I said once you went to Fields, you couldn't go back. You know, you look at San Francisco. They went to Trey Lance, and now they went back to Jimmy G. Well, if you traded up to number 2 and you gave up a ransom to move up to number 2 to get Trey Lance, well, why are you even going back to Jimmy G? Your season is not going towards the playoffs. You're not trending towards doing anything, and now you've gone to your future quarterback and now gone away from him and saying, "Oh, well, I don't think he's ready." Now what? Now you maybe he's not the guy. You start all those problems. So at least the Bears are, you know, they're committed to Justin Fields, and everybody that's, you know, well, Matt Nagy this, Matt Nagy that. He's not going anywhere. They are not looking to remove Matt Nagy. Everybody, the only people you hear this from is outside the building. Everybody inside the building, the reporters, everybody tells you when they talk to people, they do not get the idea that they're looking to make a change.
So I don't know, man. That's difficult because at some point this team is going to kind of separate itself from Nagy if this is how it's going to keep going. Like he clearly doesn't have a grasp on this offense, whether that's his fault or Ryan Pace's fault for not putting a team around Matt. He's proven that, you know, his guru-like offense is not that. I mean, they've been bottom 20 offense since he got here, except for 18.
First year,
you know what I mean? Like it's gradually just gone from worse to worse to worse, you know, and he can't seem to ever put a game plan together that makes sense. There's no flow to the offense. There's no, you know, oh, let's run this play to set up a different play later in the game. You know what I mean? It's like, and I know now it's lasers calling the plays or whatever, but it's still Matt Nagy's scheme. These are still his guys that are running the offense the way he wants this offense to be ran.
But if you look at the game,
I was gonna say, you don't can't really blame Pace for this because Nagy said he wanted a speedster wide receiver. He gave him Darnell Mooney. He gave him Marquise Goodwin. He's got Allen Robinson as his number 1 receiver. David Montgomery's been a stud. They drafted Khalil Herbert. He's now been a stud. The only problem that wouldn't line up with what Matt Nagy wanted is that offensive line.
Right.
Yeah, but it's such a huge problem. Like, it's not like saying, well, the offensive line isn't quite where we want it to be. Like, there's wholesale changes need to be made on the offensive line, and you couldn't fix it all in one offseason. So, again, it goes back to everybody said this is a 500 team. So now why at this point is everybody all up in arms that they're not way above 500? They're not beating the best teams in the league. I mean, teams that are way better than the Bears are losing to Tampa. Teams that are really better than the Bears lost to Cleveland before they lost all their starters. I mean, you look at this, the Bears, they're beating the teams they're supposed to win, and they're losing to the teams they're supposed to lose to. They're not anybody else than that 500 team. They're going to beat the bad teams. They're going to lose to the good teams, and they might get lucky here and there and knock off a team that you said, they're probably not going to beat them. Like this game in San Francisco. Whether they win or they lose and it's a close game, I won't be surprised because I could see the Bears winning by a 7 and I could see them losing by 7. Anything outside of a blowout really doesn't faze me or doesn't make me think that there's anything wrong because this is who they are. You have no left tackle. You have no right tackle. Backups have been hurt. Guys have gotten COVID. They're gonna go in this offseason. If you're 500, they're gonna go in this offseason and say, well, Justin Fields needs more time. He's not ready yet, but he's gonna play, and in year 2, he's gonna take that leap. And we're gonna get Tevin Jenkins back, and we'll have a starting left tackle. We're gonna get a starting right tackle back. Oh, and now we're gonna be able to spend some money because some guys are gonna come off the books. You're gonna see all those things, and they're gonna say, well, you know what? That's why we need to keep Matt because Justin needs consistency. And there's no reason to make a change. And as long as Ryan Pace is there, they're not going to change Matt Nagy. And I don't see the Bears going into this offseason saying, well, I'm going to get rid of Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
I think we've seen it for the last 4 years. Matt Nagy's first year was great. We were all excited. I think where we got all excited this offseason was Justin Fields because it gave us so much hope that if Mitch Trubisky could give us a 500 season, well, Justin Fields is going to give us a winning. Like you said, that was not the case. He's not ready. He's a rookie. He's going to make rookie mistakes.
Right.
But how many quarterbacks does Matt Nagy need to get his offense?
I mean,
you know what I mean?
it's a conversation of quality over quantity.
Right.
Look
but
at the
that's
quarterbacks
thing.
you've had there. You've had a bunch of crap there. Even
Right, and I
Justin
get
Fields,
that.
it's a great move, but it's a long-term move. Justin Fields was not a short-term move. If there
Right.
was a short-term move, they would have been all in on Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson or something like that. They would have found a way to get it done, whatever they had to give up, because that would have been a short-term move. They're looking long-term. And when you're looking long-term, you're not looking at making a coach and a GM change.
So I got a question then about that long term. The defense doesn't have long term time left on it. You know what I mean? This defense is old. They look good at times, but guys like Khalil Mack, they're fighting through injury. Akeem Hicks is fighting through injury.
So aren't you looking to get some of those guys off the books as it is?
Well, yes, but that's what I was just going to say. Like, if you're looking long term, you need draft capital, you need cap space, which the Bears don't have much of either.
Well, they'll have plenty of cap. They'll have plenty of cap space after this year,
right? But then they still don't have any, like dynamic offensive talent. They have
I think Darnell Mooney and David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert have proven they're dynamic.
Do you think that the Bears need to keep Montgomery?
I do. I think at this point, because Khalil Herbert, we've seen it before. Once defenses start to game plan for somebody, it could change their production.
Right.
You got to have two guys. If you have Montgomery and Herbert, you're now set at running back. Komet,
It's going to look like Montgomery
you're
and
gonna Khalil Herbert's he's a completely different player than Tariq Cohen.
I'm just saying it's going to be like that aspect when we had Montgomery.
Oh, right. You're going to have your 1A and your 1B. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And, you see Kansas City, when they had multiple running backs, you'd put two guys back there and play action to one and throw to another, or play action to one and block with one. Darnell Mooney. I personally, I don't want Allen Robinson back. I'm not going to pay Allen Robinson $24 million a year to take plays off and to not come up with the 50-50 balls. You see everybody always makes fun of Kyler Murray because he just throws the ball up there and prays to DeAndre Hopkins and goes and gets it. But 7 to 8 times out of 10, he does. Or maybe even 8 to 9 times out of 10, he does. That's what a number one receiver does.
Right. Yep.
He gives you somebody that when everything else goes to shit, you just throw the ball to him and let him go get it. And that's not Allen Robinson. You see him, he falls down making catches. He has nothing after the catch. He disappears throughout games. Like, if you want to be the highest paid receiver in football, then when everything's going to hell with this offense, you need to step up. You need to beat your one-on-ones. You need to get open. You need to find a way to impact the game. And he's not doing that. So I don't want him back. I'll go into the offseason with Darnell Mooney as the number one and build around him, whether it's in free agency or the draft or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think as Bears fans, as Chicago sports fans in general, we have a weird connection with any player that plays on our team that shows a little bit of heart. Like, that this guy is, he's a guy we got to be loyal to. We have to, we want him for the rest of his career. I don't necessarily understand that logic, because I want to win, right? And if he's not going to help produce the victories that are needed to get us to a championship, then he's somebody who doesn't need to be on the team. Not that he's not good, right? But like you said, man, if there's issues with this offense working, he should be if he's the number one guy, he should be able to box that defender out, get the ball. You need a crucial. It's 3rd and 3. You want to be able to have somebody you can depend on that can get a little bit of separation to get you that first down. And the Bears don't have anybody like that on offense. And I know that that's more of a testament to how poorly Ryan Pace has put this team together. I personally don't like either of them. I think that in a perfect world, in my mind, the Bears would move on from both of them. But then again, you're leaving it up to, Ted Phillips.
And I don't even think Ted Phillips is going to be there much longer. I think Ted Phillips is only still employed because he's in charge of getting the Arlington Heights deal done.
Yeah, I agree.
Once that stadium is done, that's what he does. He's the money guy. He does all those things, the negotiating, stuff like that. Once that's done, you're going to see Ted Phillips. I'm sure he'll retire. I don't see them firing him.
No.
So
Or
he'll
move him up somewhere.
Right, he'll retire. He'll get the man. I forgot the old GM of the White Sox. I forget the Kenny Williams. He'll get the Kenny Williams treatment. They'll quote unquote promote him to get him out of the way so they can move somebody else into that spot. But yeah, I mean, so you get rid of both of them. What's the plan, right? Because you had all these same options available before, and now there's even less. I think the more likely scenario is that you see them go all in this offseason with the new cap space they have, with Akeem Hicks coming off the books and Allen Robinson, some of these guys. If it's me, I'm letting Allen Robinson walk, and I'm going all in and writing Devontae Adams a blank check. What is it going to take?
I think it would take Aaron Rodgers.
25 million, 30 million a year. What's it going to take? And I'm going to go get Devontae Adams. And I don't think it does, because as much as he likes playing with Aaron Rodgers, money talks. He's going to go where he gets paid.
I get that, but he's also going to go somewhere where he knows his production is going to be similar to what it is now.
See,
And
but
I
you look at a guy like that. He produces no matter who the quarterback is. Same thing with DeAndre Hopkins when he was in Houston. Before they got Deshaun Watson, you saw all those different quarterbacks, and yet he produced every single year. That's what a number one does, and that's another reason. I just think Allen Robinson just doesn't produce enough without a good quarterback to be a $25 million a year wide receiver.
I'm 100% on board with that statement.
Yeah,
I just don't think that as much as I think they should move him if they can before the trade deadline. I know that would kind of,
they won't do that because of the young
right. I mean, I get that, but you got this young quarterback, and that's why I think they're like, well, we don't want to give him nobody to throw to.
Well, and it's waving a white flag, right? If you trade Allen Robinson, you're saying, well, whatever happens this year. And I don't want to see that happen because you don't have a first-round draft pick. If you had a first-round draft pick, I'm all for it. But
do you think there's any scenario where they
get a first-round draft pick out of him? I would be all for it, but there's no way.
Yeah, I don't think they could. I
don't see them getting a first for him.
I could see like a second or a third. We've seen some wide receivers move for around that.
I think it'd only be a third because he's just to the end of the year player. He's a rental. Right. He's not. He has no contract at the end of this year.
Can they?
And I think if you trade
like in the NBA,
if you trade for somebody, I believe you cannot franchise them at the end of that year.
I think you're right.
I'm not sure.
So that would. I'm not positive, but if that's true, that would impact what you would get in return as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably why I feel like they would go to him and be like, "Hey, we have a trade for you to this team. Will you sign a contract and then we'll trade you over there?" Type of thing. That's why I asked, like, do they do sign and trades in the NFL like they do in the NBA?
They're not as often, but they have happened before because the team trading for somebody's like, well, I'll trade for you, but only if we can sign you to an extension right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's some pieces on this team that I think that they could afford to move. I know everybody loves Akeem Hicks. He's on the last.
I mean, Akeem Hicks is beaten up. He just can't stay healthy anymore.
But I mean, if there's a team out there that's on the top tier, right, and they're just missing a little bit of defensive presence,
right,
like Green Bay, for instance, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, we've seen them add defense all year,
right?
Don't you think, right?
I don't think the Bears would trade him inside the division, but
they won't. I think if he gets moved, I think he gets moved to Arizona, with J.J. Watt being out for the year now.
What about like a Robert Quinn? Do you see that? Like, do you see any scenario where they were like, "Hey, Arizona, here's Robert Quinn"?
If I remember right from the offseason, Robert Quinn's deal has too much dead money for them to move him.
If they trade him, yeah.
You would almost be paying the same amount for him not to be on your team as you would for him to be on your team, and he's producing. So now that he's finally producing, why would you move him now?
Yeah, that's true.
Other than the fact that he's old.
I mean, yeah. I just wish that the Bears were. I wish Ryan Pace wasn't so eager to just move picks. And I mean, I know that he moved picks to get Tevin Jenkins and Justin Fields, but like now you put yourself in a scenario where this year could potentially turn terrible, right?
Yeah.
They've done an okay job. They're 3-4 right now. They could easily go to 3-6 by the bye week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then at that point, you're coming back after the bye, and you're facing Detroit, I think, which is most likely a win, but they still haven't played the Vikings yet, and that team is pretty solid. And you're looking at a potentially 6-win team if they can't pull out some victories here.
I think the bigger problem is you risk next year going bad, because now you have left yourself in a position where maybe you don't re-sign somebody because you say, well, I need the cap space, or I don't make this move because we need the cap space because I don't have draft picks. So now I need to win in free agency and in the draft. You know, the only thing I can say about the first round pick is Pace isn't very good at picking first round picks anyways. So, I don't know what happens. Maybe there's a way that you could sign and trade Allen Robinson. I believe he's got 1 year left on the franchise tender. So you could always sign him to the franchise tender one more time and then trade him.
The team's getting a year and a half.
I'd like to see. I don't think it happens because the kid is a stud and he keeps moving up the draft board, even though LSU is horrible this year. But I would love for them to find a way to get a high first round pick back to go get Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU, and put him back in the secondary because you need another lockdown corner. Jalen Johnson has looked a lot better this year than he did last year. I thought he looked very lost at times last year. He's looked really good this year, but you have nobody after him.
Well, and you still have those moments where like he gets lost, but I think overall you've seen a good growth from him. I think he's somebody who definitely can be your number one corner.
Right. Absolutely.
I love Desai. I think he's getting back to that, that Vic
it's the Vic Fangio defense.
Yeah, he's starting to they started off slow, but he's starting to slowly figure it out, and they're getting better and better every week, except for last week.
Yeah, well, so last week though, that's because I chalked that up to, you do all those turnovers, your defense is on the field all this time, you're giving Tom Brady and the Bucs that offense that has seemingly no real weak spot on it. The ball,
if I had to
on your
guess,
side
I'm
of the
not
field.
sure the exact time, but if I had to guess, they were on the field defensively probably 35 minutes of that game, 40.
Yeah, it was probably 35, 37 minutes, somewhere around there.
Yeah. You're not going to win a game in your defense like that, and you can't play any defense for it. But like when you guys are talking about trading, Hicks or Quinn, I get Hicks is old, but you've seen the difference he makes when he's in there and when he's out there. Teams run all over us if he's not in that lineup. You see it every time he's out. You've seen it last year. You've seen it this year. Leonard Fournette, he's been pretty solid this year.
Mm-hmm.
He did whatever he wanted. He's just catching passes.
I think that was a solid pickup by Tampa Bay.
Oh, yeah, it was a huge pickup, especially. And then, you get these guys who everybody's cast off, and they go and get them. When you look at Tampa, when they can add a Giovanni Bernard just as a situational player, it's like, you take a guy that had a huge role in Cincinnati and make him a situational player, and everybody's okay because they want that ring. They want the chance to play in a Super Bowl, and going with Tom Brady, they know that's what's going to happen. At least they're going to have a good chance of doing it. Right, absolutely. So, but here's a scenario that I'd love to see what you guys think about. I was talking with somebody the other day, and I said, so obviously Denver's season has not gone the way they thought it would. Nope. There's a lot of clamoring for Vic Fangio's job there. Vic gets fired. Does that prompt the Bears to make a change and get rid of Nagy and Pace, or at least Nagy, and bring Vic back as the head coach with Desai as the defensive coordinator, and go out and get, a really good offensive coordinator and go with this thing a different route?
I don't know. I like Desai. You know what I mean? And I think if you bring in Vic, you're talking about bringing him in as the D coordinator, right?
No. I'm talking about firing Matt Nagy and bringing in Vic as the head coach. With Desai as the defensive coordinator, and then going out and getting a stud offensive coordinator to call the plays.
I don't know. I think
would rather have flip-flop and have Fangio as the DC and Desai as the head coach. If they were,
No way.
That's because I want Fangio to be able to focus only on the defense. You've seen it.
I think being the head coach is too much for him to do.
Well, that's why you've got a guy who runs his defense. He doesn't have to spend so much time with the defense because Desai is there running the defense already. But he's there to help Desai grow as a defensive coordinator as well. Vic Fangio is almost 70 years old. His his tenure is not going to be very much more. But maybe he could get there and groom a Desai where Desai becomes the next head coach when Fangio retires. You sign Vic to a 2-year deal and 3-year deal, whatever, and he takes that time to groom Desai into being the head coach in waiting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's a scenario where I guess if you put it that way, where he's not expected to be there long, he lets Desai keep running the defense and then possibly transition Desai to that head coach role. I like that. I like Desai. I think he's young. He's got a nice rapport with the defense. I think they respect him really well, and I think that's key when you go into a head coach position. And unfortunately, by the time he would get to that head coach position, I don't know what state this defense would be in by that time. And then you're putting him in a head coaching role where your defense is depleted. It's a bunch of old guys, similar to when the Bears finally got offense with Cutler, and then the defense was just shot.
See, I don't think this defense is really that going to be that hard to get back up to par when some of these guys leave. If you take out Akeem Hicks, well, then all you do is you slide Bilal Nichols into that spot, right?
Right.
If you were to lose Eddie Goldman, you would put Nichols there. Angelo Blackson's played well. That's a guy that, Mario Edwards, these are guys that could play defensive end for you. Especially it's easier to find defensive ends in a 3-4 than it is that 4-3 because you're not looking for that pass rush, that elite speed. You're looking for a guy that can stop the run and make it hard to run by you.
Right.
And let those pass rushers get after the quarterback, not let the quarterback step up. So, you can replace Akeem Hicks with Bilal Nichols or some of the other guys on his team. Khalil Mack, if he's not here next year, maybe that's Trevin Gibson. Maybe I think it's Trevin Gibson, the young outside linebacker.
Yeah, something like that.
Travis, I think.
Yeah, Trevin. You get a guy like that. Free agency, you couldn't find a pass rusher in free agency, right? Like you can go get a guy a lot easier than you can when you're looking at other things. So to do something like that, I think it's easier to fix this, to fill in the holes in this defense to save money on the books than it is the offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, with where this team is right now, and I hate to state the obvious, but I think we really have to see kind of what happens these next couple games, right? The Bears play the 49ers today. The 49ers are not a good team. They're an okay team, but the Bears realistically should have a shot to beat this team.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense isn't great. Jimmy G, he is what he is. Everybody thought he was going to be, this next big thing after Tom Brady, and it just hasn't, come to fruition. I think the Bears have a realistic shot to win this game, and knowing the Bears the way I do, I feel like they will win this game because that's just how they are. They'll lose big, they'll lose bad to the really good teams. They'll hang in there against the good teams, and then they'll beat the bad teams, and that's where I think we are with this one.
I think the big thing today is you're going to find out. Everybody said, is it really Bill Lazor calling the plays? It looks like Matt Nagy's offense. Maybe it's still Matt Nagy. You're going to find out today because if all of a sudden the offense looks wholesalely different and you're seeing rollouts, you're seeing a lot of the things that we've been asking where they are, we haven't gotten them, and you're going to see Justin Fields put in a better position to win, then you're going to know that it's Matt Nagy holding him back. If it's the same offense without Matt Nagy there, then you know that it is Bill Lazor calling the plays because the offense looks the same as it has the last few weeks. But like I said, if it's completely different, you're going to know that it's Matt Nagy holding Justin Fields back. And if that's the case, then if they go out there and they look really, really good today, and especially Justin Fields, if he looks good and the offensive game plan and the play calling looks really good and different than what we've seen over the last few weeks, that might be enough to make ownership go, you know what? This isn't the guy. Regardless of everything else, this is not the guy. We have to make a change. And whether that means we get rid of Bold or they stick with their guy Pace and tell him that Nagy needs to go, I think that if they really do go out and look wholesalely different and in a better way, that will be enough to make the McCaskies finally make a change.
Yeah, I think if they come out, this feels like a game they're going to win. I mean, you've seen it before. They get destroyed, they come out and destroy someone else. Um, I mean, you gotta get Fields going in the play action. That's what he was good at coming out of college.
Yep.
And you've seen it. I think the number was 29 times in 5 games, 4.5.
Yeah, I think he's the lowest of the rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, which is insane because that was what he was better at than everybody else was the play action. I think we are going to see a different offense. I hope if it's not a different offense like you were saying, then it's the whole scheme that's the problem, not just Nagy.
I think if the Bears go out, right, and let's say they put up the most points they've put up this year. Let's say they go out there and put up 28 points, 30 points again, and the defense holds this 49ers team to 17 points. Like that's a completely different game that we've seen from the Bears, right? We haven't seen that type of performance where the Bears come out and they just dominate a team offensively, and if that happens, no, like the caption down here says, no Nagy, no problem. If they go out there and play that well without him, that I really think will be the final nail in the Matt Nagy coffin. I just don't see how, with the guy not there, your team does better. To me, is just such a bad indictment on you as a head coach. This was like the worst case scenario for Matt Nagy right now, is the fact that he can't just coach, because now if he's at home, this team looks better. It shows the McCaskies, hey, we don't really need this guy.
Well, I think it's not a score thing, because we saw the offense do this against Detroit too. They came out and they went up and down the field as much as they wanted, and they moved the ball whenever they wanted. I think it really comes down to what the offense looks like. Do we see rollouts? Do we see Fields run? Do we see him out on the edge where he can make plays with his legs and do different things? That will be the determining factor, because if it's just a score, you just say, okay, well, they played a worse team. They did this before against bad teams. They, like we talked about earlier, they beat the bad teams, they lose to the good teams. So just winning, by 2 scores, whatever, that's not going to do it. It's all what it looks like. I want to see, does Justin Fields look the same? Is the game plan the same? Are the play calls the same? Because I tell you what, if they're different and he's put out on the edge and he's on the move and he's doing some of the things that he excels at, then to me, as a guy who, as you know, Angelo, from many shows, I've defended Matt Nagy. At that point, that might be enough for me to then change my mind and say, you know what, maybe it is time for him to go. Maybe he is the one holding this offense back.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one thing you've always been good at, is if there is a situation, like I know you like Nagy and you think that it's more than just him. And I agree. I don't think it's just him, but I do think that if this goes the way I hope it goes, there's no real way that they can, in good conscience, come back to the podium and be like, oh, hey, Matt Nagy is the guy. I feel like it'll be Chicago fans might get what they want sooner than we think. Now, I don't know if they'll make a change before the season's over.
I see no scenario that happens, to be completely honest.
Even if this team looks better,
even if the team looks night and day better, I don't see them making a change in midseason, because now you're saying not only are we going to disrupt everything, but everything you're doing has to be, every decision you make from here on out. When you made the move to go get Justin Fields, every decision you make after that has to be, how does this affect Justin? How does it make him closer to being ready? How does it make him more the franchise guy? And whether it's better or worse with Nagy, you got to let the kid ride it out for the rest of the year. Because the worst thing that could happen is you throw everything into flux in the middle of his rookie season and switch to a guy that then changes a bunch of stuff and say, okay, now learn a new playbook mid-season.
Right.
That's not going to do him any good. It's a lot easier to make that change in the offseason and say, okay, we've got a whole offseason to learn this new offense. We've got a whole offseason for you to mesh with the head coach, all the things that go into it. And that being said, let's say they do make a change with Matt Nagy. There's got to be somebody in mind when you make that change, because you can't just make the change and then get stuck holding the bag and get a worse head coach than Nagy, or get somebody who can't develop Justin Fields. Whatever change you make, it has to be to somebody that's going to develop Justin Fields the best. And, I don't know. There's something there, though, because you've got guys in that house, or in that room of Matt Nagy, Bill Lazor, and John DeFilippo, guys that have had successful offenses before, yet the Bears can't put a successful offense out on the field. So, whether that's Matt Nagy being too power hungry or too control freak and not letting these guys do anything, or what it is. But like I said, you'll find out today, because if all of a sudden this offense is booming and they're rocking, then it really will go the strongest indictment of Matt Nagy as a head coach and as a play caller that there can be.
Oh yeah, Chicago sports radio will be all over it tomorrow if the Bears come out and do, like I hope they do. You want to jump into bare bones?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, all right. All right, man. This is the segment Bare Bones. I love that video, man. It's so
I do. I definitely love that video
for the game.
Right.
So one of the keys I think the Bears really need to focus on, and Roger brought this up before he jumped out, was the play action game. Right. I think that's one area that, regardless of if they're able to run the ball today or not, it still keeps the defense kind of on their toes, or on their heels. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And when the defense isn't sure if you're going to hand it off or if you're going to throw the ball downfield, that gives you the opportunity to, catch a defender in the secondary sleeping. You know what I mean? And if you can get a guy like Mooney, or I'd love to see, maybe Komet get a little more action today.
I think you're going to see a big Goodwin day.
Yeah, that's not necessarily
playing against his former team.
Yeah. So I would love to see them utilize that play action. I think by doing that, it'll open up a lot of things. I think Fields will be more comfortable with that. It'll help him see the field better. That's one of my keys. Turtle, what do you think? What's a key for you?
I think it kind of piggybacks off the play action, but I think they have to establish the run. You have to. This is kind of, for me, it's both offense and defense. You have to establish the run, and you have to eliminate the run on defense. If you've got Herbert coming off 2 big games, the first 100-yard rusher of the season against that tough Tampa defense last week. He looks the part. Damian Williams is back, and it'll be his second week back from COVID. So it'll be a little more rested, a little more healthy. You get those 2 guys going, I don't see any reason why you can't rush for 150 yards on offense. And make it easy for Justin. The more you run the ball, like you said, it opens the play action, it opens different things, and it lets the offensive line, it lets them, get their feet settled and get their feet under them and not have to pass protect 40 times a game. And then on defense, you have to take away the run. If you look at the San Francisco offense, Elijah Mitchell has been running all over the place. They got a couple other guys. They got the rookie Trey Sermon, who hasn't seen the field much, but he's a weapon when he's out there, especially the running backs out of the backfield. They have no George Kittle. Brandon Ayuk has not been able to get on the field very much for San Francisco. So it's really just Deebo Samuel out there. If you can take away the run, I don't think Jimmy G and Deebo Samuel will beat you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the 49ers offense is very lackluster. There's no real dynamic, like we talked about with the Bears kind of. There's no real super dynamic guy that you'd be like, that's the guy that's going to take over the game. Whereas, like with the Bears, if they get that running game going, I love Khalil Herbert. I love the way he runs. I love how he sees. His vision when he's running the ball is so good. And he's got that little bit of a shimmy, you know, when he's behind the line and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
this isn't the right way. Let me hit it this way.
Right.
I also, on defense, I would love to see Eddie Jackson step up.
Yeah.
I think the guy has really played very lackluster all season and even into last season. I think that for this defense to maintain their hold on the game, they have to tackle. And he's one of the biggest culprits in terms of getting somebody to the ground. He always looks for that big hit, right? I'm going to separate the guy from the ball. And that's great and all, but it hasn't worked. So I
He's
would
got to
just
play
look
like
for
he did last week.
right. You know, move around, get to the guy fast, close in on him, and just bring him down.
Yeah, I mean, he had 11 tackles last week.
Something like that.
You know, I know that's not his style, but right now that's what he has to be.
Yeah.
You know, the defense isn't taking away the ball, so you being a playmaker in center field isn't doing us any good. You have to come up and make stops. You have to come up and be that second line of defense behind the linebackers, because teams are game planning for Roquan. How can they scheme guys away from him and scheme the ball away from him? So you need somebody behind him to come up and make a stop. And it's not going to be Deion Bush. It's not going to be Trevin Gibson. Tashawn Gibson. It's not going to be either of them. They're both playing strong safety, but neither one of them is, you know, at this point in Gibson's career, he's not a downhill, in the box tackler anymore. So right now it's going to have to be Eddie Jackson. I know it's not his style, but I agree. I think it's huge. You know, you're making a lot of money. You're getting paid to be one of the top safeties in the league. And you look at a Jamal Adams, who is the opposite. He's a great in-the-box tackler, bring him to the line, let him get to the quarterback, but struggles in coverage. You see him this year, he's got to play more in coverage because that's what they need. Well, the opposite with Ed Jackson, the Bears need him to become a tackler. They need him to become that last line of defense to come up and make a difference in the game. And right now that's in the tackling.
Yep. Roger, what do you think the key is for this team to win?
I think, like Turtle said, you got to stop the run. The 49ers have been a run team for the last 3-4 years since Kyle Shanahan's taken over. And it doesn't matter who they have as their running back, they're going to run the ball. You have to make Jimmy Garoppolo try and beat us. I think if you do that, make Garoppolo try and win this game, I think the Bears are going to be all right because I don't think we can do it. Offensively, we got to run the ball because that's what we're good at. Khalil Herbert and Damon Williams are both good running backs. But I have to see a lot of play action today, right? I mean, we have to see it today, right?
I mean, if you don't see it today after the noise that was made about this team not doing it, and Matt Nagy's not there. So, like, at times he'll be like, yeah, I know we need to do this more. You know, the whole, I know we need to run the ball more. I'm not an idiot thing. But they really do need to do this play action. I think it'll help just Justin feel more confident back in the, with the defense coming at him.
And I think the other one I wanted to touch on is I think it's definitely going to be a key, not only today, but going forward the rest of the season, is we need to see better ball security out of Justin Fields.
Yeah.
You know, he can't fumble the ball. He can't throw interceptions. You know, there's been a lot of noise about these 2 plays in 2 weeks about, oh, they were in my helmet telling me that there was a penalty on the field. We had a free play. Whatever, man. I don't buy it. It still doesn't mean you just heave the ball up and into nobody there, right? Like, It's one thing to throw it to the deepest guy in the field and try to go for an Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary because you got a free play, a Brett Favre type play. It's a whole other thing to just completely throw it to the other team. Right. And, so I just want to see better ball security out of Justin Fields. When you're running, get down, slide, protect the ball, 2 hands on the football. When, feel the pressure, when the guys are getting through the line and they're coming to sack you, they're coming to pressure you, hold on to the ball, throw it away, do what you got to do, but you can't give the ball away. Whether it's the interceptions or the fumbles, you can't have all those turnovers.
And that was going to be my last key was winning that turnover battle. Last week, they lost 5-1 in that regard. I think for this team to really shine, the team really does shine when the defense is getting the ball, right? When they're getting those interceptions or forcing those fumbles, and Jimmy Garoppolo will give you opportunities for interceptions. And
as will the receivers. The receivers have a tendency in San Francisco not to hold on to the ball either.
Yep,
and,
absolutely.
You I guess it's one of those old adages, but when a team's not that good, you have to play a perfect game. You can't give the ball away when you're a bad team because you don't score enough as it is. You see the Tom Brady's, the Pat Mahomes, the top guys. I know Kansas City's been losing this year, but how many games you see them? They turn the ball over and they come back and blow you out anyways. It's one thing when you're scoring 35 points a game that you give the ball away once or twice because you know you're going to score. But when you're not playing good you're not scoring on offense, and you're giving up points on defense, you can't give the other team a short field and more possessions.
Absolutely.
I think Justin Fields also. I mean, I don't know why he does it, but every time he tries to throw the ball away, he tries to throw the ball away in the back of the end zone instead of out of bounds. And that's, like you said, even though that was the free play or whatever, you can't. If you're going to throw the ball away, don't try and throw it 45 yards down the field and throw it out of bounds in the back.
Well, and if you are going to throw it out of the back of the end zone, because I know sometimes you're just trying to throw it over the head of somebody, so it's not intentional grounding, but throw the fucking ball 30 feet in the air.
Right.
Don't just who cares if it goes in the 4th row or the 80th row?
Right.
Just throw the fucking thing out so that nobody can catch it.
Exactly. Don't give the opportunity to the defense.
Right.
And that's a rookie mistake too, because in college, those safeties probably aren't making that play.
Right.
Well, and
They're
the
going
thing
to
is,
make
in
that play
college,
in the NFL.
in college, those are touchdowns because he's playing at Ohio State. He's got the best receivers in the nation, and he's playing. I don't want to offend anybody, so I won't even name a school, but they're playing some bad school, and he's got guys wide open down the field. I guess my question, if I talked to Justin Fields, my question would be to him: does the game still feel slow to you? Does the speed still feel really slower than you thought it would feel?
And when he said that, I don't think he meant it like as a disrespectful thing. I think that
I don't think
he
it is
is
either.
getting roasted for that too.
Yep. I think people just took it the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't think he did either, because if you listen to him talk and you see the things he does and says, he acts like a leader and he does say the things you'd like a leader to say. So I don't think he would come out and say something like that, meaning it that way.
Right.
I think he just didn't realize before they asked, he answered, and he didn't even dawn on him, hey, maybe this isn't the way I want to word this.
Right.
Yeah, he
and now
probably
he's
walked
just
off
getting
the
roasted.
podium and was like, "Oh shit."
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the wrong thing to say.
Right. Especially in Chicago. You can get away with that in some of these markets, Jacksonville and some of these markets where they don't really care if you win or lose. But in Chicago, man, you can't say shit like that. They'll hang you for it.
That's right. All right, boys. Turtle, what's your prediction?
I think the Bears win 27-17.
27-17.
That's not bad. Roger?
I mean, they always play the 49ers close. It's usually a low-scoring field goal game. I'm going to go Bears 17-14.
Oh, God, I hope not. So the
Me too.
over-under for this game is 40 points, which obviously means that they don't expect a lot of offense. My prediction, this is maybe just a meathead in me, but my prediction is they come out and this is that game. Justin Fields has talked about that he feels that there's a breakout game coming. Maybe this is the opportunity. Maybe he feels that confidence because of the fact that Nagy's not on the sideline. I think the Bears win this game 31-17.
So we're close. We're
Yep.
close. I said
Yep.
27-17, 31-17.
Yeah, I think that their defense will let up a couple touchdowns, mostly when they're playing with a lead. They don't play as aggressive.
Yeah.
And
you've got some guys out. No Khalil Mack, no Akeem
Right.
Hicks, no – is Robert Quinn back this week?
Yep, Quinn is back
Okay,
this
so you
week.
got Quinn back, but no Hicks, no Mack.
There were some things we did not talk about, I
thought
guess.
they
Not.
said Hicks is playing.
Hicks,
that?
Hicks is supposed to be
Hicks
playing.
is going to play? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we didn't talk about the Mack situation. I don't think in this game it's that big of a deal. I mean, you say that with a guy like Mack, but I think that they'll still be able to get to the quarterback without him.
Yeah, I think, he just is what he is at this point, man. He's played through so many injuries that at some point you got to let him rest up. I mean, you see other teams, man, they get guys banged up. They're like, look, we just got to go without him. Next man up. Somebody else has to find a way to make an impact. Robert Quinn's going to have to step up and be that take on the double teams now instead of going against the one-on-ones, and let the rookie on the other side, or the second year, I guess he's second year player, but let Gibson, take the one-on-ones this week.
Yep.
I'm excited to see him get more work. Honestly,
Yeah.
Obviously we'd rather have Mac in there, but when he's came in to relieve Quinn or Mac,
Yep.
he's gotten quarterback pressure, he's gotten
Yep.
sacks. I'm excited to see him get more work today.
Right.
I'm also excited to see. I think Borum comes back today. I think
He
Larry
does
Borum
come
is gonna
back
be
today.
back. I'm
Yep.
interested to see the impact that makes on the offensive line. I'm not thinking it's going to be, head and shoulders better, but
I don't know, man. I don't know where they're going to start him. If they're going to start him at right tackle or where they're going to start him at.
I think they said right tackle.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, it could make a whole difference running the ball behind him versus some of the guys they've had out there.
well, and that's what
And
I
I
mean.
think he'll have a better grade than a 0.0 at right tackle.
Yeah.
For the passing block.
I think that this is an opportunity to see, we talked about Tevin Jenkins. Him and Jenkins are going to be two of the anchors on this offensive line at some point, and I think it'll be good for him to get back in there. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I was more of the opinion that they maybe wait one more week, let the guy get his legs back a little more. But, hey, the 49ers front isn't that aggressive. They're not that mean, vicious.
Yeah, they're
defensive
not.
line.
They're not quite where they used to be. When they had all the first round picks with Bosa and D Ford and some of these guys out there. They're not quite as dominant and as vicious of a pass rush as they've been.
Yep. So, all right, fellas. Well, that was a fun show. I think we touched on a bunch of topics, man. I always love talking Bears. I could talk Bears for
All day.
hours.
Right.
But Roger, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter?
You can find me at BearsFan_1997. I appreciate you guys having me on today. Hopefully we can do this more.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
I appreciate you coming out, man. It was
we
good time.
appreciate you being on, adding to the show. Giving a little more insight into this Bears team that we all love so much.
Turtle, where can people find you?
So I'm at Turtles Take, just like it shows there, at Turtles_Take, no apostrophe. It's at Turtles, no apostrophe _Take.
And I'm at Sport Court AC, all platforms. You go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, MySpace. I'm just kidding. I don't have a MySpace, but
bro, I still have a MySpace. I should try to go back and reactivate that shit.
Oh man! And then the Undefeated is right there at the bottom of the screen. Undefeated SN21 on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. Just search Undefeated Sports Network. YouTube as well. If you type Undefeated Sports Network on YouTube, we're the first one to pop up. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.
And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween.